Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our very first webinar. My name is Kaylee Thurlow, and I'm the coordinator for Sydney's Picnic for Peace. Before we begin this evening, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands from which we're all joining today, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded and that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And in the chat, I strongly welcome you to introduce yourselves and where you are zooming in from this evening. So now, for those of you who are new to us, welcome. Picnic for Peace began with a conversation in early 2025, so we're quite new still. And our group looked toward our city and noticed the cracks that were growing in our communities. And we noticed the isolation and the tension and the loss of something that once made Sydney feel quite vibrant and kind. And in that meeting, one of us asked, what would you want to see on the front page of the newspaper? And the answer, was quite simple. It said that Sydney commits to peace. So something obviously quite attainable in the moment. But that single phrase became our vision of a city reclaiming its heart and ultimately the vision for Sydney's Picnic for Peace. So our idea kind of spread then through local organizations, through schools, through places of worship, community networks. It became friends telling friends, neighbors telling neighbors. And that's the spirit that we still carry on. And that's very much what tonight is all about. So, as all of you would be aware by now, tonight's conversation is called Conflict in the Middle East. What does it mean for us here in Sydney? We wanted to create a space where we can sit with a really difficult global issue and talk honestly about how that is landing here in our city, in our own communities, in relationships that we have with one another, and ask a few questions of what happens when we lose the moral frame of how we understand the world. How do we deal with navigating this space? How can we all continue toward peace in a city together when this is happening overseas? So, with that, we're really grateful to have three very wonderful, amazing speakers with us to guide this conversation. So, just a few housekeeping things before we kick off. Please keep yourselves muted throughout the night, especially while our speakers are talking. If you have any questions for the panel, feel free to drop them in the chat, and our facilitator, Dr. Julie Mackin, will bring them into discussion later on when it is time for the panel discussion. And just a general reminder to be respectful of one another and where we're all coming from tonight. So, with that, I'll now hand over to Dr. Julie Mackin, who is a social justice facilitator for the Justice and Peace Office of the Catholic Archdiocese of Sydney, who's going to introduce our speakers and get us started.
Thanks so much, Kaylee, and welcome to everyone. It's really fantastic to see, if not so many faces, at least so many names. I notice everyone's got their cameras off. I'm really excited to be having this conversation tonight. And before I go introducing our three panelists, just a bit about why these conversations are important, why we need to show really, deep respect for anyone who is willing to put their hand up and say, I will talk about my experience. I was listening to a thing on AI the other day, and a woman, I think her name was Anna Goldsworthy, was speaking about AI and how what is it doing to us as people. And in that conversation, she spoke about one woman who'd married her AI partner, friend, I don't know what you call them, but anyway, she'd married it, husband, AI husband, and she was interviewed, and the interviewer said, "What do you like about having an AI, friend?" And she's husband, and she said, "I really like it because, favorite color of mine." He knows exactly what I like. He's really got me. And more importantly, when he bugs me, I just turn him off. So it's really good. And I remember thinking, and indeed, Anna Goldsworthy went on to say how if we don't have the friction that comes with being a human being trying to relate to other human beings, She said it's kind of like there's an impoverishment of our souls that is going on, that in fact we really need to not turn people off. We really need to sit through complexity, sit through not knowing, sit through being challenged. That's actually what makes us human. And I was thinking about that particularly for tonight. Irene, Emilia, Mahmoud, it's really extraordinary to have three really diverse opinions on what's going on, kind of what's going on in the Middle East, but more particularly what is going on for us in Sydney in relation to that. Because whether we are directly involved or not, we are all in some way in relationship with what is going on there. Um, anyway, so we are looking for conversation. We are looking for respectful engagement. We are looking for reflection, and we are looking for the no doubt friction that comes along with hearing stories that might make us uncomfortable. So let me first introduce Emilia Nicholas is a community engagement officer, and I have to read this out because seriously, these CVs are really long and very intimidating. So be intimidated, and I'll start reading. Engagement officer with the Josephite Justice Network, an initiative of the Sisters of St. Joseph, where she works to foster relationships, inspire community action, and advocate for social justice. Emilia graduated from the University of Notre, Australia, with a degree in politics and international relations, bringing a strong interest in peace building, justice, and community engagement. She's passionate about creating spaces for dialogue and meaningful change. Emilia is committed to building a more just and peaceful society through collaboration, compassion, and collective action. Mahmoud Kaskeen is doctor. Are you a doctor now? You are a doctor. Can't have too many doctors, that's what I say. Dr. Mahmoud Kaskeen is an engineer, humanitarian, peace advocate, and community leader, best known as the founder and director of the Gaza Australian Program, or GAP, an Australian charity providing culturally coordinated settlement support for newly arrived Gazan families. Born and raised in Gaza, he earned a PhD in engineering, built a successful career across Middle East, South Asia, Central Asia, and later established GAP in Australia following the 2023 Gaza war, leading humanitarian efforts that have supported hundreds of displaced families. In 2024, Mahmoud made history at the Australian Community Achievement Awards by receiving 2 awards in one night, one selected by the judging panel and another by public vote. And in 2025, he was appointed as a judge for the awards, recognising his outstanding leadership and commitment to community service. Mahmoud is a strong advocate for peace in Gaza, Palestine, and the broader Middle East, while promoting harmony, social cohesion, and multicultural inclusion in Australia through dialogue, collaboration, and compassionate support of vulnerable communities. Congratulations on all those awards, by the way. It's a knockout. Finally, Irene Ullman is a journalist, researcher, and translator. For the past 2 years, Irene has been a member of the steering committee of the Sydney Friends of Standing Together, Australians of diverse backgrounds and beliefs inspired by Standing Together movement of Palestinian and Jewish citizens of Israel united to end the occupation and achieve full equality and social justice for Palestinians and Jews and all others living in the land between the river and the sea. Irene was born in Leningrad, USSR, and emigrated to Israel in 1972 as a child before moving to Australia at the age of 11. See, that's why you should all be really intimidated, because I am. Okay, so really, ideally, I'd really like, I'm going to put the question to the three of you, and Irene, perhaps if we could start with you, hear your primary reflections on the first question, which is when you hear the word peace in the context of what is happening in the Middle East right now, What does it mean to you and how does it fit in with your worldview? And Irene, if we could come first to you.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm joining you from the Bidjigal and Gadigal land of the Eora Nation. I acknowledge the elders past and present, and that their land was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And I'd also like to say that I'm really grateful to be part of tonight's webinar. I believe that I was invited both as a Jew, as a Jewish person, and as a member of Sydney Friends of Standing Together. And we're not a Jewish group, by the way. Everybody is free to join. So I'm doing this acknowledging because, before I talk about what it means to me, I just this is part of what it means to me. When I hear the word peace in the context of what's happening in the Middle East, I want to acknowledge the brutality that has been inflicted on the Palestinian people. The Nakba continues and we have to stop it. And also the pain inflicted on the people of Lebanon and the human price of the war with Iran. They're immeasurable. I have friends in Israel. I believe that ordinary Israelis, no matter what views they hold, are hostage to propaganda and skillful warmongering politicians. The human price for ordinary people is enormous. I deeply feel the pain of my own Jewish people since the 7th of October 2023, and then compounded on the 14th of December 2025. My mother, my nieces and nephews and their young children were shot at in Bondi. My much-loved nephew-in-law, Eli Schlanger, was killed. While my family is shattered, I'm aware every single day of the thousands of families that are shattered in Palestine. I'm not comparing pain or suggesting there's a symmetry in any of this. There isn't. There's just heavy human pain that I wish we could all work through together. So, as I said, I'm thankful to be invited to a conversation about something that I'm passionate about, which is dignity, equality, and justice for everyone. So perhaps peace, first and foremost, means stop inflicting pain. Just stop and talk about how to get out of a terrible multi-generational mess. Negotiate, initiate truth-telling, like lots of things that can be said about that. For me, never again means never again for anyone. And how can we achieve peace without agreeing on this? If never again only applies to some people, then it's war. So a few words about me and my background. As you mentioned, Julie, I was born in Russia, USSR. When I was about 9, we migrated to Israel and we lived there for about 2.5 years. I remember it quite well. Before we moved to West Jerusalem, we lived in an absorption center in Arad, in the Negev, Nakab Desert. I had a strong impression of the separateness of us migrant kids and the Bedouin workers who were planting greenery around our building and had started building single houses into the desert across the road from us. I felt then that there was something wrong in the setup. The men were working there, and one teenager, I remember, were not part of our lives, but they were making something for us. It felt to me like they were the outsiders, not us, even though we'd only just arrived. After we moved to Australia, I went to a Jewish day school in Sydney, Moriah College. It was a very good school, but I graduated completely unaware that the Jewish history I was taught was more myth-making than history, and the people in my post-school world didn't share my innocent idea of Zionism as a homeland for the Jewish people. For them, it wasn't innocent or heroic. Views don't change overnight, and mine certainly didn't. But today I feel that my school had lied to me. I was always interested in other perspectives as a student and then as a journalist. I traveled to Israel and Palestine as an adult. It was really important for me to do that. And I was able to go to Gaza, which is still just an incredibly important thing for me to have done. Sydney Friends of Standing Together. For the past 2 years, I've been on the steering committee of Sydney Friends of Standing Together. And I should say that while there are things that I very confidently say about our group, we are a diverse group. And I'm here as me. So I'll just have to, try and be clear about when it's me and when it's Sydney Friends of Standing Together, or both. So we're a group of Australians of diverse backgrounds and beliefs. We're united in our support for the vital work of standing together. Standing Together is the largest joint Jewish-Palestinian movement in co-resistance for fundamental change in Israel to end the occupation and to introduce a democratic system of equality, safety, dignity, and social justice for everyone in the land. Sydney Friends of Standing Together formed 2 years ago to build support for Standing Together and generally for the anti-occupation movement on the ground in Israel-Palestine. There are other Friends of Standing Together groups around the world, and last year a Melbourne Friends of Standing Together was launched as well. I strongly believe that it's impossible for us to do this work without also building solidarity here in Sydney. On Thursday this week, we're hosting a wonderful speaker, a Jewish American activist who operates in these shared spaces to build Jewish-Palestinian solidarity in Palestine, Israel. She says something that resonates with me and that I find very important and moving, that we need to plug into each other's movements. And one of my passions in Sydney Friends of Standing Together is coalition building. But here's a question: build coalitions with whom? Build solidarity with whom? Which way do we build our bridges? How do we create the broadest shared space possible? When we were about to launch our group in November 2024, we thought we would grow relatively quickly because, as we saw it, we belong to the same ecosystem as other groups in Sydney who want Palestinian freedom and a just peace for all. But very quickly we understood that this was going to be a hard road for us because Standing Together is boycotted by PAGB, the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel, which is the cultural and academic arm of the Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions Movement, BDS. PAGB accuses Standing Together of whitewashing genocide and acting as an arm of the Israeli government propaganda. We disagree. The Palestinian leadership of Standing Together made a very strong statement in response, and Standing Together has commented since. So I don't need to say more about that now. But the result for us here in Sydney is that our work has been made very difficult. We are squeezed by both sides of the political spectrum. The mainstream pro-Palestine movement is hostile or suspicious because of PAGB, while swathes of the Jewish community are hostile and see us as biased towards Palestinians and not standing with the Jewish people and Israelis. We believe, as does Standing Together, that real peace is only possible when we recognize that divisions and wars are promoted by warmongers in their own interests, based on a lie that Jews and Palestinians must be enemies. In Australia, we want our government to know that there is an alternative to the extreme right-wing Israeli government. And not just that there's an alternative for Palestinians and Israeli Jews beyond the system of Jewish supremacy that's existed for decades. There's no need for our government to be afraid of taking action against crimes against humanity or genocide. But I think there's a fear in political circles, in government, among leaders, because they believe that the Jewish community stands behind Israel no matter what. Some do, but there's no single perspective in the Jewish community. There are signs that there's a growing number of Jews who are appalled and distressed by Israel's policies and actions. I don't know if people remember last year there was a campaign organized by Jews Say No. It was a full page of signatures taken out in the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. And it was 500 signatures. And then after that, it collected 600 signatures. And the thing is that anyone who wanted to be anonymous, who wanted to sign anonymously, was not included. And that was quite a long time ago. We know that there is silent distress and opposition. And so here in Australia, we want our government to uphold the dignity and equality for all in our communities, in our society. At the moment, as we know, there's a Royal Commission into Anti-Semitism and Social Cohesion. I'm worried about the consequences of it. Anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Indigenous racism, and all racism needs to be tackled. And I think that at the moment, it's that there's no perception across our communities that this is happening. I think there's a sense that we're being divided. Also, in Australia, we need the frameworks that can create solidarity instead of dividing us, like the Australian Human Rights Commission's National Anti-Racism Framework and the Multicultural Framework Review. These national frameworks are perhaps our best chance to create real cohesion. For me, there's a lot of interpersonal and personal work to do. Many Jewish people who believe that when Sydney Friends are standing together, or I, participated in Palestinian solidarity action, like the Walk for Humanity across the Harbour Bridge and other protests. They believed that these were acts that put Jewish people in harm's way. For example, because of the calls for intifada or appearance of an ISIS flag at a protest. There's a lot of work to be done in Jews talking to each other. And that's one of the things that I think our group is very aware of. Our events are sometimes the first time a Jewish Australian is in a room with a Palestinian or an Arab wearing a keffiyeh. It can be uncomfortable for some Jewish people. And then there are encounters between our Arab and Palestinian members with Jews who describe themselves as Zionist. Whatever Jewish people mean by this word, it's painful for a Palestinian to hear it. These are difficult conversations, and not everyone is ready for them. But our first task, I think, should be to get people in the room together and begin to untangle these knots that make peace so hard to achieve. Thank you.
Irene, thank you so much. Thank you so much also for being the first one. It is a bit like stepping out into space. Thank you so much. Dr. Mahmood, I would come to you now to talk about how you negotiate this space. What is peace in Sydney in reflecting the events within the Middle East, particularly in Gaza and Palestine?
I think I didn't talk half the point I was going to discuss it, but thank you very much. We acknowledge the traditional custodian of the land and we pay our respect for elders past and present. Also, we affirm the right of Palestinian people to exist, to live in dignity. When we talk about peace, especially today, I have to skip a lot of points Irene mentioned, but I don't think about agreements or negotiation or any diplomatic statement. I think about people. And when you mention about GAB, how we establish GAB and why establish GAB, because I was in Gaza 1 week before the war, and I was expecting something. I was talking to another even Jewish guy, and I mentioned this before because I'm talking about before the war. I will not talk about after the 7 October. And I said I wasn't happy in Gaza. People happy, they think they live a good life, but someone coming from overseas, someone having good life in Australia, these people, they don't know what this mean life. This is not the life. This is like, I don't think I don't want to say a bad thing, but anyone in Australia, if you live in Gaza and you see your family living this standard of life, you won't be happy to see them. So I always think about people, think about a mother being able to put her child to bed without fear. I think about father knowing their family will stay alive for tomorrow. the life before 7 October, it wasn't like when I talk about and when I came to Australia back 1 week before 7 October from Gaza, and I told someone I feel there is some explosion will happen soon in the region. And when he called me 1 week after, he said, "How you know?" I say, I felt it. This is not life. It's not a human. It's not valid for a human life. This is before 7 October. So when you talk about what happened in the war, this is that's why when you talk about peace, when I say I think about people, I think about children hearing airplane and not wondering will they should run or hide. Like I remember when my family came from Gaza after 7 October, and we were sitting in the backyard at my home. I live next to the airport. So like when we were sitting together in the garden and enjoying what we call it a normal afternoon in Sydney, suddenly the airplane was flying down for like preparing for landing. I saw my nephew, he was 10 years old, and he froze. And then he ran away underneath the table and he started screaming. Uh, for many people, like sound of airplane means travel, fun, holidays, or family visit. But for him, it was a danger. So at that moment, like I believe like this is not something really like the war changed, does not change only the way how people live, it's the people how they feel. So that's why, for me, peace is not simply the absence of war. Peace, sometimes the present of dignity, present of safety. Peace, sometimes the people or the child dream about tomorrow. Peace, sometimes also we value everyone life, every human life. So I think that this brings an important question here in Australia. How do we respond when we witness suffering? I live with people here when they came, when as I say, I live next to the airport here in Sydney, and I receive people like every day at that time. I have been traumatized myself. So I have been taking session like the trauma we observe this trauma from these people. So I witness everything, and as I say, there is trauma when I visit them before the war, and trauma when they came back. So because every society is eventually tested, like I understand. I'm not here again, as Erin said, we are not comparing pain from one side to another side, but when we talk about peace. I just want to talk about peace in Sydney right now because the feeling of war, the feeling of anger doesn't stay overseas. It travel here to to Australia streets. So we can agree about that the life of civilians should never be measured differently from because of their nationality, religion, or anything else. So in Sydney or in Australia, we can agree about compassion should not only depend on politics. We have a role as a people. When I'm not talking about politics, that's why I say I will skip my. I'm not saying I will criticize the government or I'll talk about something. I want to talk as a people now. And usually I have like political opinion always. I talk about the government with the Islamophobia, anti-Semitic. But let's talk. This is the first time I'll talk as a human being. I believe Australians are capable of doing that. Uh, one of the reason many of us chose to build their life here in Australia because of the value of fairness, equality, and respect for human dignity. Those values matter when they are tested, and they have been tested now. For me, the peace in the Middle East and also peace in Sydney are connected. We can't separate. I can't say like I have to forget what's happening to my family in Gaza and just live peacefully here. Because the global conflict, it doesn't, as I said earlier, doesn't stay like overseas. they shape conversation in our school. We have seen it. We have witnessed our social cohesion is shaking. Uh, Shape our conversation, our workplaces. I have been through these things. My work, it's shaped in our even our community. So when in Palestine here or in Gaza or even in Australia, we are in Palestine. I remember when I start working, I was working when 7 October happened. We felt our feeling is unheard. So I believe the division grows here. So again, I don't want to compare between everyone pain, but like my Jewish colleague, he was taken care of. Uh, but when people feel recognized, if you ask me about my own opinion, my own feeling when after that, and why the division has been grown, why we feel there is unfair going on, or why we are angry, let's say, we felt we are being unheard. So when people feel unrecognized or understanding become possible. So that's why I believe peace, like Aaron said, is begin with recognition. We have to recognize each other humanity first. We have to recognize each other pain also. So recognition doesn't mean like it's this disagreement doesn't mean require the dehumanization. So I know we'll never agree about everything. I have many Jewish friends around Sydney, and we talk a lot. We never agree about many things. But let's talk about humanity. This is the first time I always talk politics, but this time I don't know. I feel like talk more about humanity because I think humanity will bring us together. In fact, I would like to argue that one of the greatest danger in any conflict when we stop seeing people as human, being a human being, and start seeing them as only just labeled. Like I remember a story like I was working in someone Jewish house and being an engineer, and when he figured out like I'm Gazan, he ran away and just locked the door. And when he talked to me, we start conversation. It was Ramadan, not this one, the one before. And I said, "What do you think about this?" Say, you will kill me because I'm Jewish. I say, "How you think this?" Then when I start, he felt relaxed and he felt good. And he said, "You're different." I said, "I'm not different. We are all the same, but you think about us differently. You don't see us as a human." And he said, like everyone saying sometimes. Then I say, "Listen, let's go to Lakimba." At the time, it was Ramadan market we talk about. And he said, "No, no, no, they will kill me if they know that I'm Israeli." Or I said, "Just come with me, don't worry." And we were sitting in a sweet shop, and he said, "This is our cousin." We call Jewish cousin. And everyone started offering him free knafa like this. He said, "It's different what I thought. I thought they will do different thing for me." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "This is how they taught us." And Irene mentioned this thing, they have how they lie to us. Next day, I say, "Let's go to another market." He said, "No, no, I'm already in Lakimba. If you want to, you come over." So the guy I was meeting, and he was talking to me, and really, he literally he locked the door, and he doesn't want to see any Palestinian. And how this person. So since then, he's my friend now. But always he say they lie to us. What they told us about Arab, what they told us Palestinian, where they will kill Jewish everyone. I remember in Thailand, I was in the elevator and was from Tel Aviv, like I think more than 100 Israeli coming, and I was alone in that. Like Arab in this hotel. So I think someone had a heart attack, and I was giving him PCR, and I was helping him CPR. Then they asked me, they came to thank me. What happened? Where are you from? I say, "I'm your neighbor." Say, "You are from Jordan?" I say, "No, I'm closer." Say, "We're from West Bank?" I say, "More closer. I'm your beloved." "Oh, from Gaza." He said to me, "Do you know where he's from?" I say, "Yeah, he's from Israel," because he was speaking Hebrew and I understand Hebrew. He say, "But you saved his life." I say, "Yeah, but he's human. I don't care." And they would ask me this question, like, do you think you can kill Israel?" I say, "Come on, guys, what you talking about?" Like, he was dying. I saved his life. So he's a human for me. So always we face these things. This is like 10 years ago, since before, not before the war. I was in Thailand and I felt. So, but again, when I went last time, the last time when I went to Gaza, I went through Israel and I went to Gaza. I have seen the good treatment. I haven't suffered from Israel much like Palestinians there, but I have seen my countrymates have been treating the border and like this. I never like it, and I think when I went inside the Gaza, these people, they deserve good life. And when I came here and I was talking about there is something going on, I was predicting 7 October. I wasn't speaking that big, but I was saying these people won't accept this life. And I said it maybe in the way maybe that's suitable for them. I say you have to bribe them with good life. You cannot dehumanizing them all the time because once we dehumanize people, it's become easier to ignore their suffering and harder to imagine peace. So I wasn't expecting peace before 7 October. That's why I believe something is very simple, human pain, and this is here. Let's come to Sydney here, and I mentioned about the government, the hesitance to always take decision. But again, I consider there is political gain out of this humanitarian pain. So the suffering of civilian, and I'll keep emphasizing civilian and a human being, is never been for a score balance or win argument or deep division in our country. So I think more dialogue, more talk, more like many people, as she said, like Palestinian, they boycott the friend of Sydney, like, and they want me to go to talk to them. I don't care. I look at everyone as a human. Like I don't really, I don't have political agenda. I have always political opinion, but when it would come to talk to people, I have many friends because where I work, there's many Jewish working with me and we never agree about anything. But in the end, we have dinner together, we have lunch together, but in the end, we look at each other. We are Australian. We have to save our street from the conflict to be traveling our street. But there is a point I was going to talk more about the government role uh, in combating the anti-Semitic or the Islamophobia, or I don't know, I don't want to say they are enjoying what's going on, but there is more steps, more practical steps we can talk. But let's talk on our level like human being, and we should remind each other all the time our shared responsibility to protect human dignity wherever it's under threat. So my hope is that we build a society here in Australia where people feel of different faith or background or wherever they come from, they can stand together on that principle or just looking at each other as a human only. Not because we agree on everything, but because we agree that we are human, every human life is matters. So for me, what peace means, it's mean losing or refusing to lose our humanity even when the world around us seems to determine to test it. So we as only human being in Australia, we have to focus more on the humanitarian part. We have to look to each other like only just human. So if we'll keep talking about debate and we talk about the problem in Middle East, I don't think so. We are able to solve the problem from our seats. Uh, just let's focus on the humanity. We have Palestinian here, they arrived recently, and I always advise everyone to come meet them. You will think differently later on. And many people, like I said to as my friend, I don't want to mention his name, he's well known in the Jewish community. The one he locked the door, sometimes he comes to my home while I'm not here. So he's very close now because he thought that I will kill him one day. But now he comes to my home and he's part of the family just because I show him the humanitarian part and he donate for the Gaza kids. He totally changed as a human being. He's still Zionist, so he still love Israel. I've never argued with him about these things, but he just look at the Palestine as a humanity. He so in Sydney, I have seen many people they rejecting uh, going just to Bondi for any reason. They don't want to see Jewish there, and there is a problem even and I want just all my Jewish friends to understand. We say in Arabic, the Jewish, the translation in Arabic is mean Yahud. So you have to understand they don't hate everyone because for us, like Yahud is a religion. We have to respect them. We believe in it. So I want because my speech was more politics, but I decided in just the last minute I just talk about our humanitarian part, and we just look at us as a human. That's it. Look at everyone like dying in Gaza for no reason. I have many friends. I lost many family friends, to be honest, and they have nothing to do with the conflict and just want to live good life. When I'm wondering why they have been killed for no reason, no one give me the answer. So let's focus here in our piece, look at each other as a human, and I think we'll progress from there. It will be the first step. Thank you.
Mahmoud, thank you so much for that. As you were speaking, I was reminded of there's this beautiful French philosopher who I think, I don't know if he's Jewish or not, Emmanuel Levinas, who talked about the face of the other is what is a benediction. It is what transforms us and sanctifies us. And it's such a beautiful, just beholding each other as humans is what, in fact, imbues ourselves with humanity. It was fabulous. Emilia, I'm going to ask you now. And Emilia, you come from a slightly different background. You kind of, well, I'll leave you to talk about your background. Thanks very much, Emilia.
Thank you, Julie. And also thank you, Irene and Mahmoud, for setting the scene. Definitely big shoes to fill. And yes, I've had to rejig a lot of what I was going to say this evening, but thank you. And also to our audience, happy NAIDOC week. And hopefully this week you get to reflect on the meaning of NAIDOC to you and to your communities. Like Julie was saying, yes, my background is a bit different. While my fellow panelists have that lived experience of being in the Middle East, my background, I have Lebanese and Serbian heritage. I've never been blessed enough to visit Lebanon yet or the Middle East yet, but I hope to in the near future. And when I think about our question, what does peace mean to me? And then, in the Middle East, it's really in the pre-meeting that we had before this meeting. I did tell everybody that this was a very, very hard thing for me to talk about because I don't know what angle to come at it from. But I've decided that when I think about peace, I think about my family. I think about my grandparents who were born in Lebanon and that they managed to leave Lebanon before the civil war. But the experiences, for example, when I was younger, my grandpa, my Lebanese grandpa, he died when I was 8 years old. But I remember being a child and sitting around the dining table, and he would tell stories about, his two younger brothers who were just playing in the backyard one afternoon, and they were run over by an army tank, and they were killed. And there was no justice. His family just had to bury the two boys, and that was it. And I know we're speaking about the Middle East, but I'm just thinking about my mother right now, and if I don't mention my Serbian heritage, she'll probably kill me. Um, but my Serbian heritage, again, my grandparents also migrated here from what was then Yugoslavia. And there was a great war, a very, very ugly war in the 1990s. And hearing the stories about my family there, it also gets me thinking about the importance of your words, the importance of dialogue, and the poison that some words can cause. And when I think about that, I think about my mum's first cousin. And in those days in Yugoslavia, everyone lived together. Serbs lived with Croatians, Croatians lived with Bosnians, Bosnians lived with Serbians. And my mum's first cousin was the best friend with a Croatian man. And one afternoon, because there was a lot of propaganda going on about different races and different religions. My mum's first cousin was killed by his best friend, his childhood best friend, because it was the propaganda that separated them, that made him view my mum's first cousin in a different way. And so that's sort of the family background that I come from, and my family came to Australia. I think obviously wanting that better future, but also being, having experienced that growing up, I was always taught, just like you were saying, Mahmoud, to recognize the humanity in every single person. And I know that both Irene and Mahmoud have focused on, what we should be doing, that we should be seeing humanity, that we should be standing together in solidarity. As a 22-year-old who I have the privilege of working with other young people, a lot of what I do is I have to put out things online. I have to read the news constantly to be kept up to date. And I am really concerned about the the propaganda, if you will, that is out there in our country today. I'm really concerned that a lot of what is being said in very, very public spaces is only serving the purpose of dividing us as a nation, of dividing us as communities. And it's a great concern, and I often think, you know, where where do we go from here? It's really sticky, and sometimes it's like, well, maybe I can't do anything because in a lot of my work with the Josephite Justice Network, a lot of what I do is create spaces for dialogue, create spaces for relationship, and then you see on the big screen, for example, a lot of the poison that is being spat out in Australian Parliament by parties like One Nation, etc., etc. And it's like, oh, I feel like I'm going, one step forward and about 6 steps backwards when you see those things. And so it's really hard to imagine a different future. But I was reminded again when Mahmoud did mention today and also in our pre-meeting, one of Australia's greatest assets now and in our past, and hopefully continues to be in our future, is the way that we come together to support one another. And I think about my whole life, I've grown up in Southwest Sydney in Punchbowl. And I feel like I've watched Punchbowl sort of slowly change, slowly grow, with different ethnicities moving in, moving out. Growing up, I did live, there's a very big Christian population in Punchbowl. There's also a very big Muslim population in Punchbowl. And so when we had Easter, we all celebrated together. When there was Ramadan and Eid, we all celebrated together. And one day, unfortunately, this older woman in our community, she was a Lebanese Maronite. Unfortunately, there was a house fire and her house burnt down. And it was really tragic because she was a very communal lady. She used to talk to everybody. Um, and she used to, come together with the Muslim community during their Ramadan. Like she was just the ultimate example of what it looked like to be someone who was in solidarity with anybody who came to her front door. And unfortunately, she died in her house fire. It was really, really sad for our community. But one thing that really gave me a lot of hope was when both the men from the Lebanese Christian community, but also the Lebanese Muslim community, came together, renovated her entire house, no cost. And that was what they gave her family in return for the great comfort, and the great help that she was to their communities when they were celebrating, but also when they also needed someone, a shoulder to cry on. And seeing that growing up gave me great hope, but also, in the context of the question that I'm trying to answer, often when we think about peace and we think about peace in the Middle East, where, like you were saying, Mahmoud, we're very quick to react, to blame the government, to assume, oh, maybe they enjoy seeing what they're seeing. But often I think we have to really sit with it and challenge ourselves. What does it demand of us? And I think about all the stories that I've just shared. I understand they're a bit dark, a bit traumatizing. What does it demand of us? And when I think about peace in that context, I think it's a great comfort for me because it's like, well, yes, I should go on creating the spaces of dialogue, emphasizing the importance of relationship. And in a lot of the advocacy work that I get to do, the importance of relational advocacy as well, because then that opens up a whole new thing. I'm very privileged to work with the Sydney Alliance in Sydney, and we work on different issues: climate justice, housing justice, First Nations justice. And just this little old 22-year-old from Punchbowl who works for the Josephite Justice Network, I get to sit at a table with unionists, with sheikhs from the Imams Council, with Jewish representatives, with Sikh representatives, with Hindu representatives. Never would I ever have imagined being able to sit at a table like that. But it's because we are like-minded in that we want justice and the common good in all different areas that we fight for. And trust me, we sometimes don't agree, but one thing that we do agree on is that we want the presence of justice when we speak about peace in our city. And so I hope that I've offered you some sort of challenge for yourself, some extra questions you might be asking yourselves this week and into the future about what does peace, when you think about it, demand of you. So thank you.
Emilia, thank you so much. It's what is really the complexity here, and this is an enormously complex thing, because it's operating on so many levels. And Mahmoud, you mentioned normally you'd be talking about the politics of this. What is the government doing? And we see it right now in our body politic with Pauline Hanson and others deliberately taking an axe to an understanding of ourselves as a multicultural country, taking an axe to difference. That is, so politically, these ideas of not othering each other, of we are all in this together, are really under threat right now. And, I don't want to have a political discussion about this, but I look at all the major political parties and say they are not helping. They are not actually giving us very clear leadership on this. They are making missteps a lot, and it's hurting people when they do that. But the thing that all three of you have raised is the notion of personal responsibility to what do we do together. And I want to raise that, but I want to raise that in a way that does not excuse or let the politics of it off the hook, because the political structures are actually how power and resources are distributed across Australia, and they are integral to any question of peace or equity or justice. So I guess I want to put to you how you personally, and the answer can be I don't, the answer can be not very well, but I wanted to put to you your thinking on how when we navigate the thin line and the very thin line between a personal response, which all of you have illuminated tonight, and not losing sight of the political reality that we live in. Because I think we need to hold them both together, because without recognizing the political environment, we lose sight of actually how power is operating behind this. And we know there is vast amounts of money behind the division business, through algorithms, through social media. There is vast amounts of money behind the weapons business. Like the only good news for people on the planet at the moment is if you work for Lockheed Martin or any of the weapons manufacturers. So I don't want to lose sight of the real tooth and claw nature of power, but I'm really wanting to hear your thinking on how we negotiate this personal and political space. And Emilia, maybe I'll start with you this time.
Thanks, Julie, even though I don't have an answer yet, but thank you. I think the first thing that comes to mind is something that you said actually a few weeks ago, actually a few months ago, maybe a while ago. And we were having one of our peace picnic committee meetings. And, and I think I've come to you, Julie, a few times where it's like, I actually feel so hopeless. But something you said to me in that moment was, we must continue to be scandalized. And since you said that, I've always reminded myself of that because watching the news, like scrolling on your feed, seeing all of the really, really crappy stuff out there and thinking, like, why isn't my government doing anything? Why isn't that government doing anything? You become so fatigued yourself, it's like it's not worth it. But continuing to be scandalized is something that I always remind myself of. And I'm going to tap into something I also said just before, the importance of relationships in that. So we are, and the relationships in trying to solve this problem, in trying to address and actually speak truth to power, which is the government, has really helped me in this. Understanding that I can't do it alone, understanding that yes, I know that there's a problem that must be solved. I know that there are things that my government should be doing, should be acting on, but I can't do it alone. And so finding other people who are, advocating in the same area, who perhaps have those strategic relationships with political leaders, and if they don't, how can we go and make them? And, I'm reminded of something that my boss, Sister Jan Barnett, always says, and the importance of writing a letter to a politician, which is, something that people have been doing for years. But in my experience with writing those letters, reminding those politicians, yes, you should be doing something. Yes, the government should be acting on this, but I want to work with you on that. Because, even though you are a politician, even though you have so much more power than I do, I want to be a part of this with you because we're doing this for the greater good of our nation and for the greater good of our world. And who am I to think that I'm not supposed to be working with you on that? So that's my little answer.
That's so lovely. Thanks, Emilia. Irene, have you got thoughts on that?
Emilia actually said it so beautifully. Just the other day when we had our meeting, we talked about outrage, and I actually sort of thought about that word. It can be negative, but it's also so important. So when Emilia said, continue to be scandalized, I thought back on that conversation and that there's outrage that is, it's actually a really important state. It's like a state of alertness. It's like a sort of a state of connectedness, so that we don't become numb to what is going on. And I don't know. I just want to say I have sympathy for people who cannot participate in these spaces and cannot sustain, the important work that some of us feel that, everybody should be doing. People are so different. Um, I I've been calling myself an activist for the past 2 years, and before that, I didn't know that the word would ever apply to me. And I guess, being a journalist, a friend of mine said to me years ago that when I was working as a journalist, he said, um, "You're actually an activist journalist." And I said, "No, I'm a researcher. Like I look for facts. I need to understand. I'm looking for the truth." And he said, "You're an activist." And lo and behold, all of these things, no matter where we are, no matter what we do, we need to look for the pieces of truth and for pieces of other people's truths and to connect with that. Um, so yes, I mean, importance of relationships. There's so much organizational work and there's so much personal work that needs to be done at the same time, and it's all very it can it's very depleting at times. It's very exciting. I've had an exciting 2 years, but I have a very deep sense of we desperately need other people. We desperately need other groups.
Mm.
Um, we need more resources. We need more human resources. We can't just be a few people working on X. come do this together. I don't know what the answer is because there is a lot of, this is such a difficult, it's a difficult world. It's a really painful world. And people have the right to escape from it. People have the right to escape from all this pain and trouble. But yes, I guess all I can say is if people have a little bit of ability in them to to help other people do these things. I'm kind of repeating what Emilia said, just in different words, but I think it's all true and it's all important. And we have to sustain each other as
Mm.
groups, as movements, and as human beings, friends, family. We just need to help each other.
Yeah. I often think, particularly given the dearth of good political leadership right now, it really, you know, more than at any other time in my life, it is really up to each and every one of us to count ourselves in and do what we can, wherever we can, whenever we can, all the time. Like, we don't have trillions of dollars. We don't have access to massive AI machines. We don't have access to political power. Like, it is a really, when you look at the forces arrayed against our shared common humanity, forces that seek to divide because there's lots of money in that in various ways. We are, not even David. This is not even David and Goliath. But but that's why everyone, everywhere, all the time needs to do whatever is possible where we are. And it's very generous of you, Irene, to say everyone's got a right to run and hide. I'm more brutal than that. I'm thinking, not really, no. Anyway,
So yes, I mean, I feel like you, and then I feel that they can't, they can't. And
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
and I want to say that I have a friend who doesn't have, doesn't have the capacity to do what I do. She's just in a different space, but she helps me. She helps me with small things. They're actually really big things, but she actually doesn't even see the world necessarily the way I do, but she helps me nonetheless. She's there.
But that's what I mean about none of us are us and Joan, none of us are gonna run into a burning building. Well, some are probably, but most of us aren't. Most of us are kind of common garden type human beings trying to make everything kind of balance at the end of the day. So I'm not looking for heroism. I'm not looking for big acts. I'm just looking to each other for small acts of kindness wherever we can and to keep our eyes open. Sometimes the only thing we can do is to keep our eyes open. And if nothing else, at least bear witness, at least keep our eyes open and keep looking. Then I'm a bit tired and cranky most of the time. Mahmoud, can we hear from you on this?
I told you I'm trying to spare myself with any political opinion. I'm enjoying today talking about humanity only. Because in our cause, I always say it in front of this politician, this humanitarian pain, don't use it for political gain. Because I have so many information, I don't want to talk too much, but there is a moral failure from our politician to take responsible acts in what happened to the Palestinian or even here. Like I'm trying to be not open too much in this cause, but we suffering as Gazan in from the war and even post the war, even here in Australia. Uh, like the refugee they came, we have like 2,000 Palestinians came from Gaza, and still they are not in good shape. Like I have suppose my nephew, he came here, he alone. He keep telling me, "Where is my father? Where is my mother?" When you ask the government, like this is a humanitarian cause, you have to bring his father and his mother. And we have many cases. If you, it's big mishmash in our case. but we are weak. We are the only community. We have to beg the government. While the government, when they need something, they go beg other community. If you compare us with other Afghan, even with the recent Israeli arrival here, so if but we don't, our voice always unheard. And another thing, uh, we all Palestinian, yes, understand, but who face like the war, who lived the experience, they never give them the mic. I'm sure half you, more of you, like 90%, they never seen Gaza talk about Gaza. I'm not saying we are different, but we are all the same. But I'm living in Australia while I'm suffering. Like my saving all gone to Gaza to help my family to stay alive, to ensure that they are safe sometime. We still suffering, even we are Australian Gaza. So you never see any Gazan talk about Gaza. Majority of holding the mic, I don't say they don't belong to us, but they have been made by the government. The government give them the mic to talk on our behalf, and it's hurt us more sometimes because we have always different experience, we have always different opinion, we are always, I said, and I said it in different occasion, that we are tend to have peace always more than others because we experience the war. So always the opposite of the war, the absence of the war, always peace. So I think we need the mic sometime. That's it for the politician. That's it. Thank you. I don't want to talk too much. I have many information. As we say, we ignorance sometimes blessing, and having more details. It again, we scare. Even I'm Australian, we scare because I have family here,
Yeah.
and family there. So still, like, it's enough for the government today. Thank you.
Yes. I mean, that's right. How do you decolonize this story? You give people with lived experience the mic for a start. That's where it starts. Weiss has asked the question, and I think it's a really fabulous one that maybe you would like to answer or not, as you see fit. And that is, she says, do the speakers feel like they have enough people around them to work with and to support one another? And if so, how did they find these networks of people?
I think I just answered something.
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
think
don't
you
know.
did.
It's like, but this is it's very sensitive. We guys, and still we are in Australia, democratic country. Still we we are hesitant when we say our opinion. Even I'm Australian, but if I have my family not here, like I could say it. But again, we still live the same fear we live when we go in the airport. We are Palestinian, you have Palestinian passport, you have to be stopped, you have to be checked all the time. This is fear still, even when I have Australian passport, I have this fear while I'm Australian. So I think here the Gazan here or the community who's helping, there is many people helping us. But the community, I really admire the let's say the Muslim, even the Christian community, even the Arab in general, they are generous. The Arab in general, they are generous when they came. But there is no structure support was given to the Palestinian community or the Gazan community when they arrived. And the government assign non-Gazan to look after them. They don't understand them. They don't appreciate them. I don't want to say I'm not accusing anyone here, but there was a gap between the Palestinian and whoever like take care, like when the white people just take care of Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
The same thing with the Gazan. They felt sometimes humiliated because someone won't understand. People start, they want to introduce themselves to them. We are from, even from West Bank. I have give a session for, I think, STARS or SSI. We understand we are all Palestinian, but Gaza is different geographic piece of land. They are not exposed to the light. They don't know about West Bank. We can't go to West Bank. You know that as being Gaza. And I'm talking about just one part of the same land. West Bank, they don't understand even the accent. Like someone called me about she's a Lebanese, take care of the Palestinian to translate Arabic to Arabic for her. So this is one of the major issue we face as Gazans. We face because when you assign someone doesn't belong, it doesn't feel because what the Gazans, sometimes when I say I invite everyone to talk to Gazans, sometimes they want to speak to everyone. Sometimes they tell about their experience, about their trauma to others. So this is one part we not appreciate from the government. While we have many intellectual Palestinian from Gaza, from the land, they understand geography. I have been asked this question in Gab, you don't collect database. I say I don't need because I know everyone came. 2,000 people I know. If I don't know him personally, I know his cousin. We know each other. So we are small land. So this is one of the major issues we face. That's why we are shutters. We are not stable community after 2 years, despite generosity of people. Now, I'm not saying organization. Uh, I think I don't like to compare, if we want to compare the structure organization of the Jewish community with the Arab Muslim community, it's far different between both. I just had meeting today about the Palestinian community. They need support again. I say, why? You already have. So because when you appoint someone doesn't belong to the same community, it's really hard for even the money the government claim that they give us money. We have seen now today we calculate like with different meeting, we calculate like we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it in the way we're supposed to see it. Because why we still suffering after 2 years? Like I have my sister, she lives opposite to me. She said she found Australia is very expensive even for us Australian. We have business. I'm an engineer. I have good income, but still it's hard for them to settle till today. So after 2.5 years, if you see a community still struggling, here you have to raise many question mark about the role of the organization and people who help, how they help. I think like my wife just last night she asked me, my wife she's not Arab, she's not even Palestinian. She said that there is a Gaza restaurant open in Liverpool. Let's go to it because you want to support Gaza. I said he's Jordanian, with respect to everyone. But everyone get benefit out of it. Gaza become a trend. Everyone get benefit out of Gaza cause, except Gaza and themselves here. So if you ask me, we got people around us, yes, but it's not the way we want. So I think we want. You cannot really feed me what you like. I love to eat what I like. I have received my nephew. He's 22 years. He's alone here. He once received lollies. They collect database, his name, his passport number, and when they came outside, they give him lollies. So he said, "What this?" So someone doesn't understand what people need, and that's why we're still struggling. Like yes, that's why we haven't really, after 3 years now, or 1,000 exactly today, 1,000th day of the 7th October or the war to Gaza, we're still not stable or like stable
Yeah.
community, and we're trying our best with different people sincerely want to help. Like GAB, we are the only organized Gaza organization in Australia, the only organization never get funded from the government, while we are the only Gazan, by the way. So I'm not seeking fund. We have our resource, but yes, we have people around us, but not the way we want.
Mm, mm. Thank you. Irene.
Yes, on this question, it's a very relevant question to us. No, we never, like, absolutely not enough people. We have some great people, but I think, there's the story I told about how difficult it is for us politically because we are squeezed. We we have we have a job to do. We have to really communicate with vastly different parts of the political spectrum, and so the membership grows slowly. It's growing, which is really terrific. I mean, it does say something. But also, there's the story of how many people can actually actively participate. That's a whole other part of it as well. And again, so understandable. People's lives are very full. we are very ambitious. There's a lot that we want to do, and there's a lot that we've done. We've had some really amazing events. We've got working groups. We've got a really terrific structure within our group. So there are ways in which we're really operating beautifully in that kind of structural way. Just, we need more people, absolutely. Um, so yeah, thank you for asking the question. Find
Mm.
us. But one thing that's actually really, really important is, and that's building coalitions. And we know that not everybody can join us for their own, political reasons. We have so many sympathizers. We have so many friends who, for a whole lot of reasons, will not become members of our group. And that's fine. We value every single person for the relationship. And so we have had incredible events that we've put on with other groups who are not members of our group, but we've created something pretty special recently at Pitt Street Uniting Church, for example. I think there's just a lot of room to move in those sorts of spaces where one time one group will come along and do something, another group another time another group will come along and do something. I was reminded the other day that there's actually a connection between the word coalition and coalesce. There's something really wonderfully healing. For me, there's the coalescing is very, it's like healing. So, when we create those links, when we create solidarity, which is so much part of the way we need to operate all the time, we do solidarity, and that's healing as well. That's why we need people here on the ground in Sydney, as well as building support. So we're operating internationally and we're operating very, very locally as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Irene. I was thinking about that. Solidarity is a word that many of us, use pretty regularly and espouse to. And coalitions are the only way. We don't have, as I said, we don't have big bucks or our hands on the levers of power. We only have each other. And I think in the last couple of years, there's been a crash course in trying to work out how we support each other, how we have a coalition when things get really prickly and uncomfortable and difficult. Like, yeah, it's much easier. It is much, much easier to be like Pauline Hanson or any of the other people sowing division. It is so easy to turn us into people that are afraid of each other, that are jealous of each other, that are envious of each other. But the intricate work of building a really meaningful coalition, and by meaningful, I mean, really kind of shoulder to the wheel, getting the work done, is really, I'm just reminded time and time again, it is really hard work, very difficult work. Emilia, what are your thoughts on that? Solidarity, having support.
I think there's so much that I could say. I think one, like just to answer what Weiss was asking first, I think one of the really good things with the Josephite Justice Network and the Sisters of St. Joseph is that we have our schools all around Australia, and we have two schools in New Zealand that we work with, and we do a lot of advocacy through those schools. And often, especially in leadership work, in social justice work in those Catholic schools, it's really good to mobilize those young people. But unfortunately, one thing that we do notice is after they graduate, we've lost them, a lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And I think what you were saying, Julie, with it's easier to be like Pauline Hanson. Or it's like what you were saying, Irene, how everyone has a right to run away from this, right? It's easier to run away. And then if we don't run away, it's easier to be like Pauline Hanson. And I think working in the space that I do, I've begun to realize it's really hard for people to do our work for people, like to find other people who want to be working with us constantly, because it's difficult working in the grey area. It's difficult working for something that, you can't guarantee, the right outcome, or the outcome that you want. It's so hard. And Irene, you were even saying it, in this space, there's so much space to move. It's very fluid. That is scary words for a lot of people. But especially when you're a young person who's trying to figure out what you want to do, you're starting university, like, which is a lot of the people that we try and get on our side and try to employ, and it is terrifying, to the point where, like, we've been ghosted by a lot of people that we've tried to hide, because it's just like, this is too gray. Like, there's no certainty in this.
Mm.
Um, but, and, I know that we're all of different backgrounds and different faiths here. Um, but sometimes, and because obviously a lot of the people that we work with come from that Catholic background, and in a lot of the schools that we work in, there's this strong emphasis that we like to make, especially, the schools like to hear strong emphasis on Catholic social teaching. And in with a lot of the young people that we work with, we are beginning to see that shift where they've realized, hey, maybe it's easier to work with, to agree with Pauline Hanson, which is like so dangerous. But there's also the focus that we try to tell people, or young people at least, that, operating in this whole faith space, especially in school, and learning about your faith and learning to put your faith in action. You can't have faith and certainty exist together. And this is what we try to tell, especially our young people. Because if you think that being faithful and believing in God is going to offer you like ultimate certainty, it'll be shattered very soon. And so beginning to have those sometimes challenging, but also really thought-provoking conversations, not just with the students, but with a lot of our older people as well. And then we begin to sort of, people sort of become a little bit more open to having those more difficult discussions, then seeing why it's worth operating in these very grey spaces, spaces that probably won't guarantee a lot of certainty, or a lot of the outcomes that you're wishing for. So, yeah.
Mm. Thanks, Amelia. I love that. I love that. If you think faith's going to give you certainty, sucked in, it's just not going to. And I often think too, and like, given that we are talking about conflict and horrors, this isn't particularly relevant, I don't think. But I was politically active in the early 80s with women's services and things like that. And I remember a mate saying to me, "We've got to make this look like fun, or no one will want to know about it." And there was a truth in that. There is something about attraction rather than promotion, like, um, yes. Although, yeah, sometimes I feel like we're selling a pretty tough proposition. Except that, what's the alternative? Like, I guess that's the moment that we're all inhabiting right now, is the alternatives are we all start learning a new set of skills called how to support and care for each other, or we go down the path of division with all of the brutality that promises for all of us. So I think the stakes are getting higher, but I also think the stakes are getting clearer. We have got 5 minutes left. Before I go to your brief closing remarks, Mahmoud, I've got a question here saying, for people who want to support you and the work you do, what can we do?
I read the question now, and Gab, what exactly we do? Sometimes people they donate directly to Gab. Sometimes we direct the money. The problem we have, it's the accommodation, paying rent here, food, stuff like this. We have it. Again, we have another issue. When I just give call, we have program called Grace Gaza accommodation and relief and accommodation and community empowerment. So the name of the project. And majority of their problem, they're okay in Australia. They live in Centrelink. They have some small work. They live normal life. because they haven't seen life till now. And this is what I told them, you haven't seen life. They think that they get $500 a week is something big because this is where they're coming from. But the problem with them when they want to send to their own families, and that's why they need support here. They say either you pay rent on our behalf or you send direct over. We say we are local organization. We only just deal with you are locally. So if we pay you rent this week, you whatever money you save, you send it to your family. So everyone here taking care of another family here. So none of our Gazan here, they don't have responsibility. Till now they are connected. So if you want to help Gazan here, you automatically you're helping Gazan in Gaza. So majority of the people they just donate directly to Gab and or they tell us what to do with the money. Um, this is if you talk about financial things. Other issue, we have problem with the visas, with the family union. If someone can lobby with us toward the government, like I have, suppose my nephew, he came alone. I regret to bringing him alone because this has become burden on me. He think I kidnapped him from his family. His brother get injured. His father with him, and there is many example like him. It's not only one because I experienced one at home. So we need a better solution for our status in Australia. This is if you talk about political side. So financially, you have Gap, you have our website. We still a small organization, but we do big and with big heart.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Mahmoud. And so that is the answer to that is go to Gaza Australian Program website and have a look there. And also, if you've got a local politician and you're knocking on their door, tell them they've got to make it easier for folks to come from Gaza. Okay, we have 2 minutes left before everyone turns into a pumpkin. So I'm going to start, Emilia, with you. I guess what I'm wanting is closing remarks, even or particularly what you would really like the people listening tonight, all of us, to think about or take action on. Emilia, and you've all got, 40 seconds, so no problem.
Yeah, thank you. I think for tonight, even though I don't know many of you, and but I'm certain since you showed up to something like this and have stayed till 7:30, you've all got personal values. You've all got personal beliefs that ground you every single day. And so I think my question or my challenge to you all is what I challenged myself with. What does peace, in your opinion, demand of you today? Thank you.
Thanks, Emilia. Irene.
Okay, so I mean, I have a big thing and a small thing, and I have 10 big things and small things. But I just want to repeat that nobody can do this in isolation. So this mutual support is really important. I think Picnic for Peace is a really terrific thing that's actually really unifying, and I'm very grateful that it exists. It's going to make things possible. I also just a reminder, a challenge for all of us, because I'm not great at this either sometimes, is to see humans behind ideologies, to try and see through so much crap that's just, out there, the propaganda, the ideological bubbles, whatever. There are human beings inside all that, and we have to try and reach them. And I think that is one of our biggest challenges, apart from the government challenges and, all of that, but that's for another time.
Thanks, Irene. Mahmoud, last one.
Yeah, it's just I want to say that dehumanizing Palestinian doesn't reduce the conflict, it sustains it. So I just want to talk about peace in Sydney. It's a start here from today because and one thing I always say, just talk to the Gaza. Look for them. We have 2,000 at least recent arrival. Look at them, listen from them. I met many people, many politicians, many activists. They don't know. I asked them the same question. Have you met any Gazan who you protest for them? None of them. No one give me the answer. He met one of them. They're all around Sydney from the city to one, even Bunchball or wherever you go. So just listen to them. Gazan who recent arrival, they are tempted to have peace. You have peace with them more than anyone here. That's it. This is the only challenge or the request I want everyone to meet. I'm not being, people call me racist because Gaza is Palestine. I understand all, but we are focusing on Gaza because this is the cause of whatever we have today.
Great. Thank you so much, the three of you. Thank you so much for your generosity and being willing to step up and talk about difficult things. And to everyone watching, thank you and welcome. And Kaylee, have I forgotten? I always forget all the important messages till the very end, and then afterwards. Okay.
Well, first of all, thank all four of you so, so much. Like, this is an incredibly difficult conversation, to be having, and it is an increasingly uncertain space to be working in right now. So thank you, Mahmoud, Julie, Irene, and Amelia. Thank you so, so much for your words and your wisdom. Just two things for me, and I will give you your nights back. We'll be putting together a community conversation guide based on this discussion. So you'll have something to take back with you to your communities, your friends, and your family. So if you have registered for tonight, you'll get this directly to your inboxes. Otherwise, keep your eyes peeled on our website. It'll be made available in a week or so. And of course, save the date for this year's Picnic for Peace, where we'll get to continue these conversations over food and music and dancing and just get to know each other a little bit better. So tentatively penciling in the date of the 22nd of August at the GWS training facility at Sydney Olympic Park. More details around this will be coming soon, so keep an eye on your inboxes, on our socials. No registration is required, so feel free to show up if you're around. Everyone and anyone is welcome. So thank you all for joining us for our very first webinar. We really appreciate the presence that you have all brought. And again, thank you massively to Julie and our speakers.